when we finally start something that we have been postponing, and when we have been wanting to do something for such a long time, what happens? Your nervous system do not quickly tick, success. No. When you do something differently, when you move towards something that have been on your list for a long time, the body, the nervous system, registers as change. And when it registers as change, is going to be emotional. And emotions will come up. And I think it's interesting because that happens instantly. It's very, very quick. There is excitement, but there is also emotion. And that is real change. That is happening in the nervous system. And it's just very real. And if we don't have the knowledge that there is nothing wrong with us, and that we are actually on the right track, we might just give up. Because it's a lot to do with. And we don't see ourselves with the, oh, I have arrived glasses on. But we actually view as, oh no, I need to go back to my old life because this is just shite, This is just something that I was not signing up for, And I think, for me at least, one of the first emotions that came were grief. Because when you have been fighting for something and you get there, and the years that you waited, and not only the years but the version of you that survived, the version of you that was there, and the energy that you spent adapting to other people instead of just being yourself. The grief is real. But what is more real is to let all those feelings that you have probably never felt because you were waiting. It's like you have a box. You have a box of little trinkets, and you said to yourself, okay, actually I'm going to lock this and put it under my bed because I do not have time to open this, and I do not have time to put them on a scrapbook. Well, so now when the time came, now is the time for you to do the scrapbook. And now you're going to have to look at every single trinket that you put inside this Pandora box. And it's so, so real. And it's so painful as well. Just doing my screen here. The grief is not something that is out of track, it's not something for you to feel regret on. But instead of feeling regret, you can feel like it's integrating. It's getting, back to yourself. It's coming back to yourself. And how to work with this, you can always remember that you are doing your best. At that time, one thing that I like to say to myself is, I didn't know. I did not know better at the time, and perhaps I was not ready to go and to open that Pandora box. And the time came for me to do it, and I did. And I opened with grace and I handled. But maybe at that time, there wasn't time for me to open it. I often forget to put to finish the sentence. Okay, and yeah, allow the grief to coexist, because it is so real, and it's a sign that you are moving forward. We're gonna get there, but when you feel this emotion and you're present with that, that is also a sign, a green flag, that you are here. You're not dissociating because it's too much, so yeah, grief is the body closing a chapter. This is here, this was here, and now we are going to the next chapter. And you perhaps don't know what the next story is, but you find out, right? And then, oh my darlings, fear. I have made friends with fear because the unknown is not known, right? And when you act, when you act on your fear, it actually makes it a little bit, how can I say? When you have a dream, and that dream in your head is just beautiful, it's very perfect. And when you have that dream, it's safe, right? And it's untouched. It's like an angel. But then you decide to take down the dream and open it, cut with scissors and start working inside your dream. And then you're going to have to act on your fear. But when you act on it, it becomes exposed to reality. And it's not going to be so angelical anymore. It's going to be real, and you're going to have to face it. You're going to have to face the fear. Eyes on it. Simply as that. You're going to have to look at it on the eye, like I'm looking at yours now. And this is it, Usually it's not the fear of failure that arises first. Usually what arises is the fear of doing something new, the fear of expanding. And I have a very good video about fear of expanding. Go check it out. But how do we deal with this fear of expansion? We get used to it. We have our coping mechanisms. They are not dissociating, unless you want the unhealthy ones. But we are talking about the healthy ones. So go take a walk on the block. Breathe. have a healthy lunch and stay with it. Stay with it, with the discomfort that it is, and reassure your system. Very important. I am here expanding. Talk to it. Tell it that you are not in danger. You are just growing. Welcome the growing pains. We are here for you, indeed. Dear guilt. Dear guilt. Especially if you are here conditioned to please other people. And many people feel guilty when they decide to choose themselves. And you had a childhood that you had to perhaps look after your siblings, or you had a childhood that consisted on doing things for others. And you actually, in your family, your role was to adapt. It was kind of like you're rewarded for being helpful. You were rewarded for being easy, but not really for being who you are. So when you decide that it's time to carry on not doing the same thing, and you decide it's time for me to choose myself, that's when guilt comes to you and knocks on your door. But remember that there's nothing wrong happening, and you are not doing anything wrong, but you're just breaking the contract that existed in your past. And maybe guilt can also feel like you are outgrowing a loyalty contract with family, friends, your community. But you see, there's a balance, and until you can see what's healthy for you to do, like it's the put your own mask thing. And then, well, this video is getting quite long. Anger. Let's just start with anger. No, it was anger. Okay. Anger is something that us women have a lot, because we have anger towards the world. We have anger towards society. And when you are stepping into something that you always wanted, the anger is a boundary energy. Because if you perhaps assigned to do something and actually you wanted to do less, or you wanted to do more, and because the way society works, we're not allowed to say something as women. Let's just give this example. And you say, like, your body will say to you, if you don't say it, that wasn't okay. Actually, I wanted more, I wanted less. Or at the end, you're just done. You're just done having to minimize yourself, so you feel anger. And a good way to deal with anger is not to repress it at all, because then if you repress it, it turns into sadness, and it turns into depression sometimes. So, well, how to use our anger is to work around and channel it into clarity, into what it means to you. And also to set boundaries. You know, anger is kind of like separating you from the life that you wanted, from the life that you have, and from things that you wanted. So it's kind of like all the same way. And then we'll go with sadness now. Sadness is it's a funny one, because a lot of people confuse sadness, and you also need to understand where the sadness comes from, you know. Usually sadness comes, like I said, with the anger. Sadness is usually an emotion that comes with something that you didn't feel fully. My leg is hurting. Sadness that I'm talking here now, it's not really depression, but it's more like sadness is the emotion that is there stored for years and years and years. For years and years and years on end. And then sadness will end up arriving when it's safe. And it's a really beautiful thing. And I felt that before. Because you're finally safe. You're finally safe to experience the sadness in a good way to deal, not to deal with it, but I don't want to use this word, but a way to let it, to work with it, would be don't rushing to fix anything and crying and let it pass through your body. And one thing I find it very, very helpful is to treat it like it's the weather. But it's not your identity. It's not like I am a sad person. But you can say like, it's cloudy today. It's raining today. And then the last one. Actually, we do have one more, but I'll make it very quick. We have overwhelm. Overwhelm is when you have so much on your plate, and doing what you always wanted to do. It doesn't change who you are. Doesn't change overwhelm. It doesn't only change your schedule, but it also changes who you are. And identity shifts are very demanding to the brain, because you're gonna have brain fog, you're gonna be tired, you're gonna have emotional sensitivity, you're gonna be wanting to retreat. But that is really the nervous system is recalibrating, and it's getting back to baseline. And a good way to work with it is to retreat. That is correct. And rest. A lot of rest. And remember to turn the guilt-free button on. I love that button. One of my favorite buttons. Yeah, this is it. And finally, we have arrived to relief and the fear of losing it. Precisely. because sometimes the most uncomfortable emotion is relief. Because relief can also trigger hypervigilance. It can also trigger self-sabotage. Especially if in the past you were not familiar with relief, and your nervous system is only adjusting and learning. It's like, okay, we're on this motion now, but practice to things being good. And practice expansion again, and you can say something like, okay, when you always wanted things that were not here, when you always worked towards something and they finally arrive, it's not you're off track, but now your body is catching up to the truth. You are finally safe. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, because your body has finally has got the space to speak. And again, with all the emotions, you are so safe to feel them. And when you're allowing yourself the space, the safe space, and you carry on doing whatever you're doing, it could be music, it could be a project, but anything that you're working towards, it doesn't need to be anything like the things I said, but essentially that is it. Yeah. So if emotions are here, don't turn them down. Don't turn them down. Just let it. Let it, feel it. Feel it in your heart. And allow yourself time to rest. I know that time in this world is something very, very scarce. So allow yourself that time, give this time like a present, a January present for you. And I wish you all the best in 2026. Have a